I also want to thank Mr. Jones and Mr. Goodley for some excellent presentations. Mr. Goodley, we have a copy of yours, if we can get copies of the other presentations, just to put with our files. Members, as indicated, I didn't know that the Jamaica Computer Society is here, Mr. Clarke. He assures me that he has a 5-minute presentation, and I think it may be better if we just take it so that we can then have a full question, because if not, we might end up, and they were here from the last meeting. So, Mr. Clarke, I'll give you time to make your presentation. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, I have a 20-page document, I think, that was circulated previously. So I assume that it is read. But I'll do a 5-minute overview that can then form the backdrop for the discussion. Chairman and members, the JCS welcomes the opportunity to review and share feedback on the Green Paper on the public sector rationalization and transformation exercise. In reading the Green Paper, however, we had some uncertainty as to whether the focus was on rationalization, restructuring, reinvention, or transformation, because these 4 things are 4 very different things. To the extent that the terms of reference of the exercise was to rationalize costs by removing instances of duplication through restructuring the service, then one could say that the Green Paper presented may have achieved its objectives. However, to the extent that the exercise was intended to reinvent or to transform the public sector, then to that extent, we in the JCS feel that the document may have some shortcomings. We feel that a strategic transformation of the public sector would of necessity entail a more extensive study that looks not just at structure, but also context and environment. And I'm separating context from environment, with the former being related to internals and the environment being related to externals. The present document is heavily focused on structural issues and is devoid of both a contextual and an environmental setting. And that may have to do with its original terms of reference. And the focus of the document might very well have to do with the resources, the time, the persons, the data that was available to the team that was doing the transformation study. We hope to draw attention to the need to pay sufficient recognition to both contextual and environmental dimensions in order to achieve a more meaningful and complete restructured or transformed public sector. The following quote, which I'm going to mention below, is taken from the World Economic Forum's recent Global Competitiveness Report, which I think Mr. Goodley mentioned earlier, which coincidentally was released on the 8th of September, just after the last PAAC meeting. And it demonstrates the strong ties between structure, context, and environment. We're drawing reference to this quote as we feel that a key measure of our institutions' efficiency and effectiveness is whether our institutions across all sectors, public and private, are aligned to the task of moving the country's productive capacities forward. Now, the WEF, or the World Economic Forum, defines competitiveness as a set of institutions, policies, and factors that determine the level of productivity of a country. The level of productivity, in turn, sets the sustainable level of prosperity that can be earned by that economy. More competitive economies tend to be able to produce higher levels of income for their citizens. These all sound like truisms. The institutional environment, however, is determined by the legal and administrative framework within which individuals, the citizens of the countries, firms, the business engine or wealth engines of the country, and governments, who has control of the public sector, interact to generate income and wealth in the economy. The quality of institutions has a strong bearing on competitiveness and growth. It influences investment decisions and the organization of production, and plays a key role in the ways in which societies distribute the benefits and bear the costs of developmental strategies and policies. The role of institution goes beyond just the legal framework. Government attitudes towards markets and freedoms and the efficiency of its operations are also very important, excessive bureaucracy and red tape, overregulation, corruption, dishonesty in dealing with public contracts, lack of transparency and trustworthiness, and the political dependence or independence of the judicial system impose significant economic costs to businesses and slow the process of economic development. I want to just juxtapose those comments also in that the World Economic Forum, through its own studies and data analysis, told us quite recently that Jamaica had slipped down in its annual global competitiveness ranking for the 3rd consecutive year. The JCS is of the opinion that the public sector has a critical role to play in the thrust, the movement to restore national competitiveness. And so the question is, what is an appropriate public sector, both structurally and contextually? What should it look like is the question. The JCS feels that a sustained national focus by the public and private sectors on the higher order capabilities of leadership, and leadership is where the internal context of the organizations are set. Leadership speaks to motivation, proactivity. High order capabilities of leadership, innovation, inclusiveness, knowledge, education, and entrepreneurship will all help to make a difference in our overall national competitiveness. In our own review, the JCS looked at the question of structure, context, and environment from 4 angles, and those are elaborated in the document. 2 simple acid tests. The first angle was 2 simple acid tests focused on how does the public sector serve the ordinary citizen? That is, how does it serve national human capital development? The second simple acid test is how does the public sector serve businesses? And by businesses, I'm not speaking of the traditional private sector. Sometimes when we speak of private sector, immediately it connotes big business, PSOJ. I'm talking about the broad swath of private businesses across the country, the persons who are engaged in wealth creation. The second angle is the reform structure supportive of moving us structurally, and by structure I'm using it national economy-wise, to a knowledge-based society and economy? Or are we going to be stuck in the old mode of production? Third angle is a structure what I would like to call ambidextrous, meaning with a sufficiently forward-looking strategic set of processes while simultaneously dealing with operating processes that are addressing efficiency needs. And the fourth angle is, does the structure sufficiently signal support of national reorientation towards global competitiveness, going back to the WEF construct earlier. The limited data for supporting our comments are firstly from the external documents which we mentioned from the WEF and some documents from the World Bank, as well as a simple content analysis that we did on the PSTU plan itself.